this particular universe. It's nothing to say about before. Anyway, so that's why the people claim that science believes that the universe came from nothing. It's just false. But
Not my claim.
you what?
Not my claim either.
No, I know. I can't remember. It wasn't you who said that. It was somebody the other time. But I forgot. We've been doing this for so long. I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, yeah. So composition fallacy. So, yeah. So you're saying that because everything's not eternal, within, like this couple decay, whatever,
Time.
it goes away. Time moves. But what do you mean by time?
That
There's many different kind of times. So you talk about physics and time. It's not the same thing as like our idea of duration. Like, oh, it's 2 o'clock now, 4 o'clock later. Time has passed. It's not the same thing as physical time. Like the time can space into the time can curve and stuff like that. So it's a composition fallacy to say say that because we observe it a micro instance, does that mean you can infer it on a macro level? Meaning that because everything has a cause, does that mean there's a cause to everything? Right? That's just a composition fallacy, and we do that all the time. Like you wouldn't say that you are just an amalgamation of molecules. You're just a bunch of molecules. Everything is just molecules.
Oh, wouldn't you have to say that?
No, it's a fallacy. Nobody says that. Well, I mean, I think so. People do say that. I think people are mistaken. I think there are other atheists who are very, very mistaken about things. Yeah, just very, very mistaken. I mean, they almost take a religious view of things they just haven't thought out completely. Like, you're stupid for believing God exists. That's a ridiculous thing to say. You're stupid for believing or making a claim that God doesn't exist. It's the equal kind of claim. So, like these angry atheists, I think, are just we find in the political left a lot. That's an issue. So I'm not saying that.
So,
Anyway.
all that to go back to the prophetic word of Scripture.
Yes.
Okay, the prophetic word of Scripture, that when we look at in the Old Testament and when we look at when these things were uttered, and we look at the archaeological evidence that is in line with that, we can see that this was written centuries before the actual events took place in the New Testament. It's demonstrated that way.
Okay.
The
destruction of the temple's one.
Well, one of the best examples, as you're saying, is the book of Isaiah. The best manuscript that we had, the oldest extant manuscript that we have was I forgot how old it was, but then they made a discovery in Qumran with the Dead Sea Scrolls. And they found an even older. I think it's like 400 or 700 years older or something. It's older. It's way older than our best example. And when we actually compare this scroll that was buried for centuries upon centuries.
Is it the Hagmanati scrolls?
When we compare it to what we have today, it's like 99%. It's been preserved.
That's a great claim.
It's been preserved.
What is your great evidence for it?
Well, the two scrolls, when you compare them, when you read what we have, what was on the books to that point, and when you read what that scroll says, that's what they said. It was preserved, and so within that was preserved Isaiah 53.
Okay.
Which says.
Okay.
Or did you want to have a particular point you wanted to start with?
Let's read it first.
Huh?
If you want to read it first, then we can get into it.
Okay. Who has believed what we have heard, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? He grew up before him like a young plant, like a root out of dry ground. I know that sounds kind of ambiguous, but we're going to get more specific in a second. He didn't have an impressive form or majesty that we should look on him, no appearance that we should desire him. Mm-hmm. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of suffering who knew what sickness was. He was like someone people turned away from. He was despised, and we didn't value him.
Yeah.
Yet he himself bore our sicknesses, and he carried our pains. We in turn regarded him stricken, struck down by God, and afflicted. But he was pierced because of our rebellion, crushed because of our iniquities, punished for our peace. The punishment for our peace was on him, and we are healed by his wounds. We all went astray like sheep. We all have turned to our own way, and the Lord has punished him for the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb to the slaughter, and like a sheep silent before the hearers, he did not open his mouth. He was taken away because of oppression and judgment. And who considered his fate? He was cut off from the land of the living. He was struck down because of my people's rebellion. He was assigned a grave with the wicked, but he was with a rich man at his death, because he had done no violence and had not spoken deceitfully. Yet the Lord was pleased to crush him severely. When you make him a guilt offering, he will see his seed, he will prolong his days, and by his hand the Lord's pleasure will be accomplished.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're saying this is a reference to Jesus?
Direct, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
And so here's the problem. There's a few problems with that. First off, it's all in the past tense. It's talking about as if this is already passed. So how is it a future prediction?
I would like to, if you'll let me.
Go ahead.
So this was understood at that time as a prophecy, even though he's writing about it in the past tense. It's common for prophets to speak as if things have already happened.
Okay.
Because when God speaks, it's already declared and it will come to pass.
Okay.
So it's a, I guess you could call it a literary device, perhaps, but
Just a literal thing? That's fine.
but that's how they write.
Okay. So just a writing style.
But
It's a writing
but
style talking about as if something. So you're saying that because the way it was written, how they usually granted prophecies, which isn't always true, because Jesus made prophecies which are not said in the past tense. But maybe you're saying maybe in the Old Testament they did it like that.
Yeah, I'm not saying always either. I'm saying in this case, this is how Isaiah's prophecies were written and
Right.
conveyed.
So I'll get to my point for a second. So that's great. So that's fine. I'll grant that too. So how do we know they're talking about Jesus?
What did you hear? Did you hear the different points that he fulfilled?
I heard all of that, everything that he fulfilled. How is this different than, how do we know it's Jesus and not the Messiah that the Jews are still waiting for?
I think I hear you correctly, but I want to make sure I understand what you're asking. So you want him to be explicitly named in this in order to really believe that he fulfilled these things.
I'm trying to find your reasoning for thinking it's a prophecy.
Got it.
So I'm trying to get down to just the basic questions I feel anybody should have when they are told they have divine prophecy. And if this is an all-knowing God, why wouldn't he use things very explicitly? So why do you think... No, actually, that's a different point. But again, you particularly, why do you think that's Jesus?
Sure. I'll speak to what you mentioned, and we can revisit it later, and then I'll answer your first question.
Okay.
He does, in some cases, choose to be explicit, and he does that for his own reasons. Like, I think it was King Cyrus that he named explicitly. I think it was with Daniel.
He names King Herod.
Oh, that too.
He names, I mean, there's a lot of...
So-
the Bible's a great history book.
So sometimes, even in prophecies, God does name certain people for certain reasons. And in this case, he doesn't. He doesn't give the name of Jesus in that passage. But in other times, well, of course, I don't know what God's reasons are. But, but to that point, there are other times when he does give us names, like that Jesus would be called Emmanuel, God with us. That he would be called different things. But I think that's beside the point for what we're trying to demonstrate here. What we're trying to demonstrate here is that there were some things that were in his control, like
writing it on a document.
that too.
Yeah, he
I was
did
thinking
say-
of something different.
But as you notice, when he does do those things, it says, as it was said in the
Yeah,
scriptures.
I was thinking of how he didn't open his mouth before his accusers, right? So you could argue fairly
Depends which
that
book are you talking about.
What
On
we
the
just read.
cross? Oh,
what we just read said that he would not open his mouth. He would be like a sheep before its shears.
but he
And-
did, depending on which gospel you read. My God,
Well,
my
it's
God,
not
why
that
have
he
you
totally
forsaken
did.
me?
It's that he didn't give it a defense in the night when he had the wrong examination by the Pharisees.
This is my problem with false prophecy. It requires a lot of interpreting. Because you're like, oh, well, he's not talking about when he was on the cross. We're talking about the night when he was accused. Okay, how do you know that? Well, it doesn't say it there. It's just, well, that just makes no sense.
Well, I
Right,
think
so-
doesn't Paul point out that that's the exact distance that's in mind? Somewhere, I'll have to check me on this. I
Even
admit,
though,
Is that in Luke?
let's say Paul
Clarity.
does say it.
yeah.
Even though he says it, that doesn't lead credence to it being true. So that's the
How
we're
so?
talking about, because we're talking about a prediction. So like a prediction to me is like, but this is my okay. You know, actually, we won't even do the scientific prediction. Let's just go with this. Why you still think it's Jesus? It doesn't say Jesus. You have to move things around to say, oh, well, he didn't open his mouth at this time, so that's what it was actually saying. Because Jesus did open his mouth, and he did actually talk during that time too. He calmed, and whatever his name was got his ear cut off, and he told him not to, whatever. He opened his mouth. He did open his mouth. It doesn't make sense.
It does make sense if you take Paul's accounting for how they work together. Because there's a specific instance when he's brought before the Pharisees with an unjust trial in the middle of the night, and he refuses to give an account of himself to them as they bring accusations to him.
That's
Moreover,
right.
That's just within the realm of what was potentially in his control. Because you could rightly argue, yep, Jesus knew the prophecy already, so he was just choosing to fulfill it through the
That's not my argument.
But even if, okay then, great. But even so,
Yeah.
he didn't have control in the time of history that he was born. So the fact that he was crucified, the fact that he was pierced for transgressions, is another kind of prophecy, part of the prophecy that he fulfilled.
So, that's fine. I just think that we have a different standard of prediction.
Well, we're talking about two different kinds. I would agree with your standard if we're talking about scientific predictions.
It's the same
But
standard.
this is not a scientific prediction that we're talking about.
Well, here's a better prediction that comes from a religious text. The Puranas predicted accurately that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. They predicted that way before Jesus was around, and it was true. Does that make the Puranas true?
I would refute both of those claims. But okay.
Why?
Because it isn't. I would argue that it's not proven that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old.
Oh, so you're a young Earth creationist.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to have that conversation?
I do, but not in this sitting.
Yeah, because that's another.
And it would take a long time.
That's the hard. That's why I like this conversation, because it hits on every point of philosophy. It hits on every point of.
I am
knowledge.
willing, just not at this.
Yeah, no, I know that's literally another monster. I don't even want to begin, but that's fine. So you are young Earth creationist at the same time. So you so then science to you is not really as accurate as the Bible is.
Oh no, I wouldn't say that. I would say science is a reliable source to determine probable theories. Very, very reliable source to determine probable theories. But it is a bad source. It is not a source of ultimate truth. It's not a way to
It doesn't
determine.
claim to be.
Agreed. I'm just clarifying my stance. But I want to finish what we.
Sorry.
We're
Yeah,
talking
we're
about.
going on the prophecy part.
So
yeah, we just have. Oh yeah, and so I'm concluding. I mean, it's fine. In terms of not going any further, because I hear what you're talking about. My uncle is a huge prophetic guy. I mean, he's constantly doing this, and it's always comes down to vagary and not clear. And my standard for if you're going to make a prediction, particularly if you're God, you want to convince people, say, hey, guess what? There's going to be a guy. His name's Jesus. He's going to be my son. This is what's going to happen to him.
yet all of those things you just listed are true and revealed in the Bible at different points through different prophets. They tell us his name. They tell us where he was going to be born. They tell us how he's going to die.
They don't tell us his name. So this particular prophecy doesn't.
I said that. They're different prophecies that include all of those different
There's like-
pieces.
So you could
300
God could have made the Bible better by just being explicit.
See, there's the rebellion that you're referring to earlier. I know better than
might
God.
be-
God could have done it better.
No. I'm saying that information. So like, I'm not claiming. First off, I don't say that because I'm not presupposing God like you are. You're that's only rebellion to you when you presuppose God. I'm not. So the point that meaning better, meaning clearer, if God was just plainly explicit about things, which this is the classic argument, of course, which I'm sure you probably already have an answer to. But he could have just said, hey, look, there's going to be Jesus, he's going to come around, he's going to be born here. That's exactly what's going to happen. But he doesn't. He says things in vagary, he has to speak in the past tense, yet that's because some things happen that way. And when he was silent, he was only silent when he was accused, not on the cross. We got to talk about that. Or you can even say when he was in front of Pontius Pilate, he was silent, he only said 2 words, whatever.
Very quickly. So are you saying that if you had that kind of evidence that you would surrender to Christ and become a
Absolutely.
Christian?
If that evidence was true, absolutely. If it had that kind of predictable evidence, then there's evidence for it. I wouldn't know. Oh, let me restate it. If there was, let's say that the whole Bible was evidently proven to be accurate, then yes. But one prophecy won't do it. Like, let's say even, so like the Puranas, for example, they accurately proved, from my position, the scientific position, that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Right? And that's amazingly accurate. It doesn't make me believe in the Puranas. I don't believe that. And so just one prophecy isn't convincing, and it shouldn't be convincing. I think that...
That's why there's 300.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, so now you're dismissing.
No.
Okay.
No, if the same methodology of interpretation is invoked the way you just put out this particular prophecy, then I can, on that, and this is a hasty generalization, I am bound to dismiss it if that's your methodology. Unless it's specific. So basically I'm saying if it's not specific, it's not to me a prophecy, because you can, another way of saying this is that you can look back at ever since that these books were written, and not just with the Bible, but with other books, people thought they, like to say, the end of the world. Apocalypticism, which is actually, interestingly, they think that Jesus had, the reason he spoke that way is because he actually was influenced by apocalypticists back in the day, Jewish apocalypticists, which is really interesting. But, I forgot what was going. It was too long of a conversation. What was I just saying?
We are coming to the end of it.
What was I just saying? I said before I said the apocalypticist thing, because of that methodology. Yeah. So because it's not accurate. So
a hasty generalization.
Yeah, I am making a hasty generalization, but I'm only dismissing, or I'm basically rejecting the methodology of determining what a prediction is. So for me, a prediction is something Einsteinian, the curvature of space-time.
Okay, but now you're applying a different standard to
No, I think,
prophecy.
and that's my argument, is that it should be the same standard, particularly when we look at other books that are more accurate than that.
Other books that are more accurate than that, such
Well, no,
as...
there are just
Like the
other
Quran.
books that have those kinds of examples. I mean,
That's
So
what
if
when
you're
you say
proving a court case,
the-
and you have
which book?
eyewitness testimony, for example, or
Yeah.
you're trying to prove a historical event, you don't apply the scientific method
Yes,
in that
you
scenario.
do.
You use it to leverage different points of consideration,
No.
but it's not the only standard.
The court case is the best example. You're right. That is exactly how we come to truth, because that is where the truth really matters. How do they come to truth? They don't do it like this. They don't read and try to fit it in the right area. They
No,
don't
I'm
have
trying
their
to fit it.
hang on. They don't have their
That's
conclusion
misrepresenting the
first.
position,
How?
because we're not fitting it in. We're seeing the fulfillment of it. It's not a. I'm going to decide that this thing is what it is what that says. No, it's been studied and carefully demonstrated that this is what it is, and it's
That's called, sir. The reason I'm saying you're fitting it is because it's not explicit. So
well, it's not explicit enough for you.
it's not for me. It's just the standard of evidence we should have for determining what the truth is. So like in a court case, let's say the butler did it. The butler did it. Well, how do you know? This book says so. Is that good evidence?
Okay, that's
That's a straw man.
Even I know it's a straw man. It's
but
a straw man to point out
this
the
book
inaccuracy.
says so, and I'm not going to do anything with it. You're not even going to examine if the book is what the book is saying at that point.
But the reason eyewitness testimony is the least reliable standard of evidence in a court case is for that reason alone.
Because I can dismiss this all day long if I don't open it.
I've read that Bible extensively. I'm just saying that my point is, I can't even keep points together anymore because I'm so tired.
Sorry,
But,
I'm sorry. I don't want to
no,
distract.
but like the standard of, see, that's what I'm objecting to. You're changing your standard for evidence based on what you're looking at. When it comes to your special case, that's what we call special pleading. Oh well, yes, the standard evidence for in a court case or in science is you should have it like that, but you shouldn't do it when you come to the Bible. Why?
No, it's not that.
It's not exactly accurate,
That's
but I
not
get
what we're
your
saying.
point.
It's not that you shouldn't do it when you come to the Bible. It's that we approach historical accounts differently than we approach the molecular weight of H2O.
No, so absolutely.
Yes.
The standard of evidence is the same. So history
Yeah.
actually has the standard of evidence, and that's why in history they don't
Yeah.
think prophecy is true.
Yeah. No, but
It's too inaccurate. In the same way that history cannot reconcile, like y'all tried to do, with the differences between and the contradictions within just the Gospels. So like the standard of evidence is different. So, but scholars, scholars.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
The standard cannot change, and that's what they call in philosophy shifting the goalposts.
Okay, but the thing is what you asserted as contradiction. People have heard and fielded those claims and addressed them. And there are ways, and they have been found to actually be quite harmonious.
When you change your standard of evidence.
No.
Yes. You can't tell me this, sir. You can't say that it has the same standard of evidence that we do when we have a court case. Let's say somebody, that's actually I love that example. It's the best example. It's like let's put Jesus on trial. Isn't there a book called Jesus on Trial? Jesus on Trial. What would we do? How would we find out if this is actually true? What is the evidence? We'd have to change it to make it true. If you want to say that that's a prophecy, it's not a good prediction. We have to change our standard of evidence, what we consider evidence. Now, evidence is anything that makes something more true than not. Right? That's anything. It doesn't even matter if it's science. It doesn't matter if it's logic. It doesn't matter if it's reason. As long as it gives me something more.
Does evidence have to be interpreted?
Opinion, no. So your interpretation.
Or it doesn't?
No, it doesn't actually, because your interpretation and your opinion is not evidence. Right, and that's why in philosophy, you take philosophy 101. Well, maybe not that, just logic. I think they say that an argument is divorced from the arguer. You don't look at the arguer, you look at the argumentation. So just having your opinion isn't sufficient evidence.
Because otherwise you'd be stuck in the genetic fallacy. Oh, he said it, therefore it's not true.
Well, the genetic fallacy is because he said it, therefore it's not true. No. Genetic fallacy is about because it's happened in history.
Yeah.
That it is therefore true.
Well, it's.
No, that's not right.
Well, okay. No, it's okay. Bill's a liar. All right. Bill told me 2 + 2 is 4, but Bill's a liar, so I can reject it.
Yeah, that's not the genetic fallacy. That's an ad hominem. That's an ad hominem.
No.
Because you're attacking the person.
No.
It's wrong to reason that way. You're attacking the reasoner, not the reason.
No, but you're not.
He's talking about a different fallacy.
Yeah. I'm talking about
what you just said is because somebody is a good example I use is Sigmund Freud. He's a coke addict. So therefore everything he learned was bad. Or everything that he presented is bad.
There we go.
So that's an ad hominem. That's what you're attacking and this is what politics today, unfortunately, is all about. Yeah. It's attacking the person and not the policy. It's attacking the person, not the argument.
Yeah.
And that's not you're good. You're right. You shouldn't reason that way.
Yeah.
But this is a little bit different than. I feel so bad for not knowing what the genetic fallacy is off the top of my head.
Yeah.
It's important. I do know it. I just don't.
Yeah.
Have it.
We've been going for a while.
This is. I'm. Cut me slack.
Cut us all slack.
I love it though. I could do it.
Yeah. If I don't necessarily like to reason this way, but I can recommend a source, a book, if you want to study. You'll probably you'll approach it with a healthy skepticism, I'm sure. But you can. I forget the name of the author, but the title just came to me. It's Cold Case Christianity.
I've read it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah. It's actually an argument about.
Yeah.
The reason I've read it. He has 2 of them. Cold Case Christianity, then there's a sequel.
But what he was doing is compiling, all of the different ways that Christianity is attacked in these different ways, and people have addressed these things, and so there's no.
From my understanding of the book, maybe I may be mistaking it with a different book, which is entirely possible at this point.
Yeah.
I thought he was making the claim that Jesus existed. That he was talking. He was trying to say that okay, look, this guy really did exist, and we can probably. And his claim is that we can trust what has been said about him.
Yeah,
and most of that book I didn't disagree with because I think Jesus existed, and I think that the Bible is just as accurate as a historical document that we have of anything during that time as well. But it's not a case for an author. We need a historian, not a ex-private investigator. Or what was he? He was a
forensic detective.
Forensic detective.
Yeah.
So that is not an authority on those issues at all. You just you need historians. So I don't know how much more I can do.
Yeah.
I really can keep going though.
it would be good in my mind to make sure there's nothing else that needs to be said or that anybody wants to say, and then potentially pick out a couple points to revisit at a later date. That's what I would like to do.
Yeah, I think we covered epistemology pretty well, and I think that if we have this conversation again, I'll just repeat the epistemology of I think therefore I am, and I don't know anything. And but what we can know are varying levels of probability.
Everything after that, it's all conjecture.
It is, and so.
So this whole thing is conjecture.
Well, but with varying levels of probability, the same way that a pink elephant outside and a car outside is both conjecture. One of those is more probable, and so there is a clear difference between the two, and we can make statements that are reasonable like that. And so that's another appeal to the consensus is also part of that. So I think that if you want to discuss my epistemology further, that would be great. But I think that's kind of like beating a dead horse because we already admit that you start with the conclusion, I don't start with the conclusion, and then we try to, you have the presupposition, I don't. Which I was surprised. I thought we were going to talk about like you need a presupposition for the laws of logic and thinking it all and that kind of. I thought that was going to be the argument. Yeah. We could talk about presupposition, like go deeper into presup if you want. Then the other one I thought would be very interesting would be to talk about a little bit more the science side, evolution, creationism, that kind of thing. But what do y'all think? What do you think we should talk about next time?
Again, my foundation is always going to be God's word has the power that He intends for it to have. It will not return void, and I'm always going to call back and try and leave that with you. That in His word He calls you to repent and believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and knowing that call, that command, you won't even approach wanting to believe in it unless God grants it to you, and I pray that He would. So.
You don't pray that He would?
No, I pray that He would. And in fact, in the best way possible, I'm going to pray for you that you will not rest easy until you find your rest in Christ.
Well, that's another good conversation actually we could have, is about how I think the talk about how to have a good life. That to me is really my final motivation about all of this. It's really about how to live a day-to-day experience and what does it take, and like what kind of world do we want to see in the future, and how should we be teaching our children. I think that these are the reason I actually have these conversations are for those purposes, because when you say having peace, I would love to talk about peace.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. So for my 2 cents,
sure.
I think truly that's where the rubber will meet the road. And to be transparent with you, I would make the argument that you won't have consistency between not whether or not you can live a good life. I don't doubt that you can be moral and have experience a good life. What I'm going to doubt and what I would bring forward next time is why, and whether or not you have a solid enough foundation to have a good life and a moral life.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that for sure.
And I think one avenue to get to that is the Doctrines of Grace. I think since that's new territory for you, that would be fruitful for your own mind, but also it gets right to the heart of a God-centered presentation of all of these aspects that we've been getting at. So if you want to do pre-reading or research on that, it's called the Doctrines of Grace.
Okay. Is that that's not part of the Bible, obviously. So is this like just further interpretation or theology?
Yeah. So it's part of Reformed theology.
Okay.
A really good resource is John MacArthur.
Okay. Doctrine.
We might find stuff from Steve Lawson. They usually cover some similar ground.
What was do you mind saying the first name?
John MacArthur.
John, not McCarthy.
No, MacArthur.
MacArthur. M little C, big C.
Yeah, you got it.
MacArthur. E-R. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so that would be.
These are books, or these are? It's just kind of been.
There's an
developed.
acronym that goes with it. It's called TULIP. There are 5 points of the Doctrines of Grace.
Okay.
The terms I'm about to give you can be unhelpful at first because they need definition,
Okay.
and that will be flushed out by him and other people.
Okay.
Total depravity, irresistible grace, limited atonement, irresistible grace, and perseverance of the saints.
Okay.
So in short, people are depraved by nature. We're not as bad as we could be, but we are fundamentally depraved.
Yeah.
What was it? Unconditional
election. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah.
God's the one that makes the choice. Limited atonement.
Yeah.
Meaning that there is a certain number of people that God saves, not everybody.
Oh, so you do believe? Oh, yeah, that you did say
Yeah.
that. That's right.
Irresistible grace, God is the one that draws us into that loving relationship with himself. And those who are the recipients of this grace will persevere through the end of their lives.
And this is Calvinism.
Yeah, so these are 5 tenets of Calvinism
Very
and therefore Reformed theology.
Very interesting.
And so if we get into this, I think not only will it be interesting to you intellectually,
Yeah.
but it'll get right to the heart of the morality of things, like the why that I was alluding to earlier, that I think is really good.
Yeah. So I'll premise that in the thing of why, because like I said before, theology. My thing about theology, it's a little bit like you can do this with any book. I mean, you could do biblical. When I strawmanningly say biblical fan fiction, but it's just further reflection about about it, and it's not, to me. It has to. If the question is there a good reason to believe in God, and we're going to talk about morality, the why question, and that kind of thing. I'm curious that. To me, theology wouldn't cut it, no matter how much theology you do. Not trying to be totally dismissive, but simply because of what theology is, right? So, it's like if I took Harry Potter, we want to see if Harry Potter's true. We start talking about the story of Harry Potter and how it correlates to some things in the real world, right? Like Harry Potter does make mention of certain areas of London and stuff. Doesn't make Harry
Like
Potter
when I run
true.
into that pole, it's supposed to take you through the portal.
Yeah, well then
Yeah.
that's when the rubber meets the road, right?
Yeah.
The face
then
meets
you
the
get,
pavement.
Yeah, the face
Yeah,
meets the pavement. That's right.
Would there be any point in the Harry Potter series where we can ask the question, does it say why it was written?
Does it? No, probably not. No.
Well, because
But I bet we could probably.
because the scriptures do indicate in places that let us know why these things are written.
Yeah. Okay. So, but I thought the why question was more about not about why the book was written, but about morality.
Yeah, I meant
so
it.
we meant it morality.
Well, that's a bigger why.
Well, why the
question.
book was written is, I think, is pretty. Well, I guess maybe for me it's obvious, but I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we'd actually agree why the book was written, other than you
But the-
actually believing it. And I
But
don't.
these things are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in His name.
Exactly.
That's what I would impart to you.
Is that John 20?
It's John 20 and 31, last verse in the chapter. Under James White's name, which is the second bullet point, under his name, just put debates. Just under his name,
All his debates?
because
Okay.
he's got like 140 debates with all manner of worldview. He debates with Muslims, he debates with atheists, he debates with Catholics.
Y'all should check out T Jump. If you understand, if you ever want to read Tom Jump, please do that, because or Tom Jump is on YouTube, and if you just look at a couple of his, he's an atheist and he does debates. And
Hey, what's up? I don't know what y'all got going on, so I didn't want to interrupt.
You remember this guy?
I think I met you.
I don't know if we've met.
Oh,
Okay,
my
this
name's
is Nathan. We met him on the square.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right on.
he is a
Atheist.
atheist. Okay, I don't want to
Okay.
speak for you. Yeah.
No, please. Yeah, I'm self-prescribed atheist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
This is
Please
Will.
fine.
He's not
Will?
an atheist.
You're not.
He's not. Yeah.
So you Calvinist?
I'm a
Yes, he is.
Yeah, I'm a
Very
Calvinist
good.
too.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very interesting. That's
Yeah.
one. That's a new thing for me, Calvinism.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever. Well, if somebody was a Calvinist, they've never told me. Like I know. I know. Like, didn't Calvinists have the churches that are square and they all face the middle? What is that?
Is that an Anglican?
No. And then they sit in silence. That was so interesting.
This is news to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
It might be
what you're
early
talking
Calvinism.
about. I have
Maybe.
no idea.
There's so much.
At the
There's so
very
much
least,
to
it would be
remember.
helpful to
Yeah.
clear up some of those things with you, so you know
Yeah.
where Calvinists stand on
Sure.
certain things.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to do that.
Yeah, I mean, but to me, it doesn't matter what religion it is.
I'll let
If y'all are
y'all's
Christians, y'all are
conversation. I'm
Muslim,
actually
y'all are
meaning to
even if you want to tell me about something supernatural, it's always down to the same thing, and it always comes down to a court case.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to say it. It's the same standards in a court case. And I think we should have consistent standards from all form of knowledge.
Yeah, well, I guess this could be a good opportunity to clarify, using the illustration, my position and the difference between our positions. I don't think that God is on trial. I think that we're on trial, and God's the judge. And He's the only one that has the right to sit in that position. So I'm not arguing that we should treat everything else the same way that we treat God. We shouldn't presuppose everything else and operate that way. But I am saying
I know.
God is the one that's judging and we're on trial, not the other way around. So
Well,
maybe that's helpful.
but if the no, I see. That's and again, it goes back to the fundamental difference because I see what you're saying. But my claim is that, you know, obviously we don't presuppose everything else, right? Like that. But I'm saying, but you do for this one thing.
Absolutely.
And so that one
Absolutely.
thing is where the standard of evidence and the standard changes. And my position is that we should keep the same standard. We shouldn't have special pleading, because then there's literally no way to differentiate what's true between somebody who is Buddhist or somebody or some other random religion. I'm not going to make a specific religious claim, but somebody else's random religion who makes the same kind of claims. How do we know they're not right? That's why the standard of evidence needs to be consistent, because you could be wrong. You could have endorsed yourself in a completely incorrect religion. It could, and I don't know if you actually even grant that possibility. Most Christians don't. Like my uncle would say, "No, I know I'm right." And like as Jesus says, you got brothers you should know and not believe.
Well, I would just have to join with the Apostle Peter and declare that Jesus has the words of life. Where else are we going to go?
Where are you trying to get to? Why are you trying to run?
Because there's life.
Because life is full of sin.
It's in His name.
Pain,
Yeah.
and we all know it. The world's broken.
Does running away work?
No, we're advocating that the only option that's worth pursuing is a reconciled relationship with God. That is the only thing that makes sense.
Which would, I think, now this touches more into the well-beingness part, because I think that kind of philosophy about how to deal with the inevitability of suffering in this world is extremely important, and it matters what we tell people. People, like, you all want to say, believe in this book. And I'm being a straw man, purposely, though. I'm not trying to be, but I know it's far more complicated than that. I'm way more sincere than that. And I'm saying, well, I think there's other ways of doing it that are better. I think, Anyway.
It'll be good to line those up next time.
Yeah, we'll do. I think that's great. So what are we going to do next time?
I would like to get into the Doctrines of Grace as a mechanism to get into the good life. And
Okay.
then as we're in the good life, we can contrast those different points between metaphysics to both sides, epistemology to both sides, ethics to both sides, so that's at least clear in the contrast.
I think that's a good way to say it. Maybe we can focus. Maybe if I could say it a different way. Maybe how about we focus on, like, the conversation can be about what is a good life, and then you bring up the doctrine of grace as an antidote to suffering, and I'll bring up other methods as antidotes to suffering, right? Like, what is a good life? You propose, well, the doctrine of grace is a great way of thinking about that. I would say, no, maybe meditation's a great way of thinking about that, or other ways of thinking. So we can definitely do that.
Quick side question. I'm just curious. What is the significance of your bracelet?
Memento mori.
Huh?
Memento mori.
Okay.
Be mindful of death. Because when you're mindful of death, it doesn't sneak up on you. And it brings importance to this present moment. Because you can die right when you get up off this chair. Get a brain aneurysm, whatever. But
Right.
being totally, totally happy and at ease in this present moment because of the prospect of death. Meaning that there will be a last time you talk to another human being. There'll be a last time you pick up your daughter or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a limit to it. So keeping death in mind is a way to always enjoy this sacredness of the present moment, of what there is.
Count our days, number them.
Yep.
I would just add that there's more waiting on the other side.
That's actually, I would argue, would be an immoral doctrine because of that. I think it steals from this moment, saying that my happiness and my salvation and my well-being will happen at a later time.
Oh, you think we think that?
Well, if you think that if there's a goal, like that's why I said earlier, where are you trying to go? Well, we got to figure out suffering, right? You try to go somewhere. Where are you going to figure out suffering? Trying to get to heaven, like heaven is later. The good stuff. Like, it may be okay now, because here you're suffering, but
see.
all the suffering ends once you get to heaven.
Yeah, I would definitely reserve what you might call the experience of heaven for beyond this life. But that by no means
That'd be a good conversation,
indicates
too.
Yeah.
that we can't have foretaste of it here and now. I experience, we'll get into this next time, but
Yeah.
I experience this certainly a kind of joy that is alien to me. It's something that is out of this world. It's something that surpasses understanding. The peace that surpasses understanding, for example.
Yeah.
But it informs every moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I think that there, foundationally, in this present moment, there is just a unmistakably peace
Yeah.
and stillness.
Now,
Yeah.
have
As
you
Jesus,
considered?
be still, know that I'm God.
Say that again.
Be still and know that I'm God.
So
So this is just already present, like salvation or well-being is already present.
have you considered the option that life in every moment could be even more meaningful than you currently experience it, with the consideration of it renders a return on investment for eternity?
No, because I think that steals the joy from this moment.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
looking
because
at that
because
next time.
the reason my thinking about that is that because I'm trying to, if you believe in God, tell God what to do. I want something to be different than the way it is. And
What?
if that, so you're saying, if I understand you correctly, you said that don't you think that we can make this moment better by doing things now that would get some sort of large return later?
Understanding that no matter what we do, it has eternal implications.
Exactly. No, I don't think that. And you're saying that this relates to making this present moment better?
Yeah, because then not only do I get to experience the happiness of helping somebody, let's say in a given moment, just because it's the right thing to do, not because it's self-serving, but knowing that there is an eternal weight of glory, something that brings glory to God.
Yeah.
But
This
then
goes
the people-
beyond me.
Yeah.
It
This
helps
is
that
only-
person,
yeah.
and it's to the glory of God forever.
Yeah. This
Yeah,
is
but,
only a foretaste.
But again, that's again exactly what I'm saying. So it's placing this wonderfulness, this great whatever it is, like make it the big number one, God, heaven, whatever, eternity, whatever, later. It's
Yeah,
not now, and that's the point. I'm saying it steals
I see.
because I think that
But that's not the
I
Christian
think that-
position.
Well, I don't know if that. Oh, well, I'm just responding to his position.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
So yeah, but that to me comes from again, this is a kind of a different conversation because it's more about like personal experience and really about. But to me, my only argument about the reason I would bring these up would be a counter argument to the idea that the only way to really have this kind of wonderful, wonderful life or a really sacred and meaningful life. And I think that the experience of God, like walking with God daily, is a real experience. And I can say that from personal experience, that the feeling of encountering God, being one with the universe, whatever, is a real thing that happens to people across all religions and all cultures. They all try to explain it in their own way. And I think that we don't need belief in anything in order to achieve it or to have it. And we don't, actually, there's nothing we can do to cultivate it.
So that's a
That's a different conversation.
faith statement.
It is a faith statement, because I think what you guys call faith isn't faith. I think what you guys call faith is clinging.
Is what?
Clinging.
Clinging.
Clinging. Like, a good example from Alan Watts, I'll bring him up. He says, we're kind of all in the same position. You know, we're all at the beginning of life. Let's just say we're pushed off the precipice. We're all falling, you know. And we're falling in following the feeling of falling to suffering is kind of that relation. And in order to, we think clinging to rocks, holding on to rocks, and these rocks are ideas, beliefs, viewpoints, is going to save us. We're all falling in the same place anyway.
And the rock's falling too.
Yeah, the rocks are falling too. Exactly. So instead of wasting energy clinging to rocks, you let go. And that's real faith, because you don't know what's going to happen. It's being totally okay with whatever it is, no matter what it is, not starting with a conclusion. That's real faith. Starting
so-
with a conclusion, I would say, would be
By
hold on.
contrast, I would say we know that there's a bottom coming, and so it's better to let go of the rocks and grab a hold of a parachute.
Yeah, I would make the distinction. I would make a
Jesus is
distinction.
the parachute man.
Yeah, I know.
I would make the distinction.
Where'd you get the
there.
parachute,
That
though?
It's
huh?
not. I think
Given by God.
I think the clinging is a, you know, that's a.
It's my position.
Yeah, I think a better way of saying that is blind faith versus informed faith.
Yeah, that's a different cover. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I know. Like, not, I mean, I know.
It's I'm like going, I don't know what's
It's
out
the
there.
attitude of thy will be done. But thy will be done, thy is in question.
Yeah.
Right? Because I would say that the thy is what there is, regardless of what I believe it is. It doesn't matter what I believe. There is something, and in whatever it is,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what I believe. That I have trust in.
But-
And it's just an attitude of letting go.
Yeah.
Letting go.
I can discern that.
And I think I'm glad that this is a little bit of a poppy topic, because I think it'd be good to actually formally sit down and have this conversation. Because then we get into the broader implications of Christianity and just religion. Well, we'll stick to Christianity, and about well-being. Because trust me, that's the more important piece to me. What we did today was more of the logic.
Well, it's pretty broad in the end, but I do appreciate your time. Can I?
Yeah, no, I absolutely appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate
Joe,
you. Yeah.
Jacob,
Yeah.
it was a pleasure meeting you.
yeah.
By the way. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I always get so much out of this. So.
Yeah. Let me stop the.
Good.